Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of Unedited. I'm Ethan.
I'm Jordan.
And we're excited for today, aren't we?
We are. It's a good day.
Yeah, it's been a good week. How's your week been going for you?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
A little bit of rain right now. We're kind of hearing it outside right now. So if we pick up any of that, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, we've got construction in the building too.
Yes.
So if you do hear anything, viewers and listeners, there might be some ambient noise, but bear with us this week.
Yeah, so it's not our soundtrack. It's just noises that you're hearing at the moment. So
that's just my stomach.
Yeah, exactly. It was a late lunch. So no, things are good though. They are good. Yeah, summer's kind of approaching. We're going to get some hot weather this week. I missed the hot weather actually, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had it felt like we had a warm April, and then the first part of May was really warm, and then it went straight cold for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, interesting, hey?
Yeah.
It's been a really weird spring for Saskatchewan. I think we mentioned this a little bit last week with the wind, but we've had a lot more rain than usual.
We have.
Very different for
actually, 50% more than like years past kind of
Really?
thing. Yeah. But and the climatologist guy from Environment Canada was on the Bray show the other morning, and he said that summer's going to go back to dry.
Really?
But because of the rain we've had so far, it's going to be okay.
Like for the harvest?
Yeah. Yeah,
Interesting.
apparently the water's built pools and stuff, so there's a good supply of it lying around. Yeah.
Hopefully it's in the ground, eh?
Yes.
So agriculture. Hopefully it's a good year.
I hope it's a good year.
My father-in-law's a farmer, and he always, moisture all the time.
Big time.
Always talking about it. So
big time.
Well, you know what, Jordan? Thanks for asking. My week's okay as well.
Yeah.
I just I don't even give you a chance.
Yeah.
I really wanted to talk to you about hair though.
Did you?
So you do hair simple.
I do.
I've always respected that you just know what you're doing.
I do.
You do it. It's
all the time.
Same thing every day.
Every time.
Do you like that?
I do.
You like the consistency?
I keep a style for 3 to 6 years, and then I move to something different.
Wow. 3 to 6 years.
Well, sometimes, it depends. Yeah.
This guy's living life. I like that.
I mean, I held on to that faux hawk a little too long around 2015.
I remember that.
And I probably should let it go around 2012 or 2013.
But you pulled it off.
Yeah. This actually works the best for me because I have a natural cow look that flips this way.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm here, and I like it.
I think it's cool, man, and I respect it because I used to do shaved sides.
Yes, I remember
longer top.
Yes.
And I loved it because it's always the same thing.
Yeah.
It's so consistent.
Yeah.
And I am the person that I don't want to think about it. Like I don't want to spend time in the morning fussing with hair. It drives me nuts.
I would agree.
Yeah, which is why I appreciate what you've done. You've got yourself your hairstyle. You rock it.
I've got one product and 2 combs.
Beautiful.
And a blow dryer. Have to blow dry my hair though.
Nice.
Otherwise it won't poof. People ask how do you get it to poof? It's you blow dry it with hot, and then you do it with cold for about 2 minutes.
Cool down the
add your stuff in and then flick it back.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, I've always been resistant to. I used to mess around with hair dryers, straighteners, stuff when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I had like long hair and I had dreadlocks and I had all sorts of different stuff, right? But that was because as a teenager I was obsessed with my appearance. But nowadays I just really want to do something simple.
Yeah.
And forget about it the whole day.
Yes.
And recently I've been trying to experiment with having a different hairstyle because I've thought, I've been doing the same sort of hair for like almost 10 years. And it's driving me nuts.
Is that?
I can't stand it.
Yeah.
I hate fussing over it. And I just had to bring it up because I needed to hear what you think because I respect your hairstyle. I respect your life decisions, Jordan. I respect you as a human being. All right?
Yeah.
Just to set the groundwork
because of my hair.
Only because of the hair.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
there
like
you go.
I know you outside of your
Thanks
hair,
for
and
it
it's not because of any of that.
Yeah.
No, but I'm like, do you think I should just go back to something more simple, more maintained? This, by the way, anybody who's watching and able to see my hair right now, it's just whatever my hair would be obedient to today.
Yes.
Like nothing spectacular. Yeah. And do you think I should just go back to something like what you're doing, where it's just like, keep it simple, keep it straightforward?
I don't know. Maybe. It might be. You have to grow it out a little bit more probably, right? You're the person who I saw doing their hair like this, like early on. Because you used to do your hair kind of like this, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you'd flick it back, I remember.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started doing this haircut, it was a lot shorter than this, and I just kind of flicked it to the side.
That's right.
And then I grew it out. And then as I started like messing around with different things, I tried the pompadour for a bit, but that's really hard to style all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little...
My hair does a natural pompadour, actually.
I was going to say, you could pull out the pomp.
Which makes it frustrating to deal with.
Yeah.
So I had somebody ask me a couple years, or last year, was it? Anyways, I tried doing like medium length hair, and I would just kind of let my hair go like curly, wavy.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, "Is that natural, or do you get a perm?" And I was like, I could never put that much effort into my hair.
Getting a perm.
It was just whatever my hair does. But okay, anyway, I digress. I've got the input that I need. If anybody who's listening or watching wants to give input on Ethan's hair, my hair,
Yes.
I know everybody's biting. They're chomping at the bit to get in on this. They just need to know.
Send your ideas.
Please tell me.
Send your feedback.
Tell me, shave it.
Yeah.
Actually, I buzzed it one year, and a few of my close friends were kind enough to tell me to never do that again.
I think he needs to grow up, maybe past his chin again.
Yeah.
So people don't realize this but you see my hair?
Yeah.
It probably goes down to close to my chin.
Can you, for the sake of the
I
show,
don't want to do it because I'll
can you
mess
just
it up
pull a
right now.
strand down?
Maybe at the end, okay? But
Okay,
it can actually go down to about here.
All right.
And people don't realize that.
We'll believe it when we see it.
No.
He's for audio listeners.
I'm not
He's
lying.
pointing to his chin. He's saying, so Jordan has shaved
About my
sides
mouth.
of his head.
About my mouth.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
So shaved sides with a long top is what Jordan has, and he's
Yeah.
saying his hair could actually come down to his mouth.
Because I used to have my hair down to my shoulders when I was in high school.
Mm.
And I could every now and then I'll mess around and part it in the middle and flick it on each side just to see what it looks like.
See what it's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on.
And it looks crazy because it goes long in the front and short in the back, right?
Oh yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I'll wear it like that. Maybe next episode. Okay?
It's like that emo bob that they did for a while. Shaved side of the head with a really long bang.
Yeah.
And like nothing in the back.
Yeah.
That was really big when I was
Remind me
in high
next
school.
episode, and maybe I'll show up here with the emo thing going on.
Everybody come back for episode 5 because that's what's happening. So, well, let's get into it, Jordan. Today we've got a few things to go through. First off, it's in my feed.
In my feed.
So now we both have some news articles from our feeds this week. Do
Yeah.
you want to go first? What's happening in your world? What came across your plate this week?
I'll go first. You know, we've been talking about food too much, so we're going to get off that tangent here within my feed. And I came across an article last week that told us right here in Saskatoon, we've had more mosquitoes compared to our 10-year average. And more mosquitoes this year compared to the 10-year average means this, is that the city's count in Saskatoon is averaging 1.39 mosquitoes compared to 0.13 last year. And the 10-year average of 0.17. That's a lot. 1.39 to 0.13 and 0.17.
Okay.
So we got a lot of mosquitoes this year. And I think it's because of that rain we were talking about at the beginning. Because we've had
that's
moisture.
right.
It's gotten in the ground. It's not hot, so they can kind of breed, right? And then they're just going to go nuts right away, I think.
And they lay their eggs in those little pools of water, little still bodies of water.
Do we still spray in the city? Do you have any idea if we still do that? Or?
I have no idea. I know that's controversial, though.
It probably is, eh?
Although I don't know what they use for mosquitoes. I just know that some people are very against using pesticides.
It doesn't spray. We don't spray for mosquitoes. It says it right here in the article.
Like fogging is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I know, like in Winnipeg, that's kind of how you kept the population down a little bit from the mosquitoes.
Manitoba is crazy with mosquitoes.
It's nuts. Yeah.
It's like an infestation.
Absolutely.
You need to like cover yourself, and you just got a barrel of DEET at your house.
Yeah.
And you just dunk yourself head to toe in there before you go out in the morning. It's crazy.
When I was a kid, we bought this stuff called D15. It was an Amway product.
Okay.
Back when Amway was a big thing.
Yeah.
And
they're still around.
We would soak ourselves with that stuff.
Yeah.
And it kept the mosquitoes off. But like you'd be playing golf in Thompson, and like literally you're walking down the fairway, like pulling your golf clubs, right? And like there's like literally 100 by your head just buzzing at all times. And as a kid, we thought that was normal, and we never lost too much sleep over it, right? We just kind of we went on with it. Yeah, it is ridiculous actually. Now that I think about it, because now when I have two near me, it drives me crazy.
Yeah. So when I lived in Manitoba as a kid, I definitely felt that as well. Like Manitoba, like honestly, it's just Manitoba's built different with mosquitoes.
It is.
Like it's a plague. It's biblical. You know, like there's something is wrong in Manitoba. We've got to have them turn around. No, I'm just kidding. But it's pretty different.
Hey,
right?
don't diss Manitoba here. Just clued into what you're doing.
We're both from Manitoba to some extent. So also in Thompson, speaking of flies.
Yes.
Thompson bulldogs.
Oh man, they're nuts.
Those things are crazy.
You ever go in water? And come out of water?
Yeah,
you're
going
to
to
get eaten a lot, right?
So Thompson bulldogs are horseflies.
Huge horseflies.
And they're just like the size of my thumb, which is the size of like a quarter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and unlike wasps, which will annoy you and buzz around you, but they're usually looking for like meat or like something sweet or something like that. They're not going to hurt you unless you start swatting at them. Bulldogs are just going to hurt you. They're
just
going
angry.
straight for the skin,
They're
right?
just
Like,
angry.
Yeah.
They just eat chunks of flesh.
That's
They're
what
they don't bite you as defense.
yeah,
They bite you for food.
I know.
Yeah.
And there's another bug up there, since we're talking about bugs, called pinchers. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those
Yeah.
big spruce bugs?
Spruce
They look
beetles.
like giant ants with antennas.
Yeah.
And those will take welts
Those
out of you.
hurt.
Yes.
Yes. They're
I've-
worse than a wasp sting, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
I've never been bit by one.
Really?
So yeah, I've had them land on me, but they're the kind of thing that when they land on you, they stick. So you usually have a moment to like
Yeah.
get the thing off of you fast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You know, in Saskatchewan, even if you are going out to the lake this summer, you're going out to the cabin, here's your yearly reminder. When you're pulling that wood pile apart, there's going to be spruce beetles in there.
Exactly.
Watch out. Don't
Yeah.
get bit. Nobody
careful.
wants to deal with that.
long
So,
sleeves and spray yourselves. And well, I guess I don't bug spray wouldn't even work against these things. These things are just nuts.
they're
So,
beasts.
Yeah.
They're like Alien, man. Like Alien, the movie Alien, you know? They got like second jaws, big tails.
Yeah.
You know? They're all black. They're dripping in goop. They
Yeah.
eat people on spaceships. Should I keep going?
No.
No,
You know what? I think we've had enough. So
It's too far, eh? Well,
So-
Jordan, that's crazy. The mosquitoes, the skitters are out there, eh?
it is nuts. And how will that actually affect your summer? Because I know it's so insignificant, and yet at the same time, go sit on a deck for an hour after 9
Yeah.
o'clock and tell me if it's
Yeah.
insignificant, right?
Absolutely.
So
You know what? I would take unprecedented skitters over smoke. Because a
Yes,
wetter
okay.
year has meant, I think,
Yeah.
that it means, so this is like purely just my observation, not that I've seen any reporting on this,
Yeah.
but a more wet spring
Yeah.
has meant more mosquitoes but less fires.
yes.
And I would
100%.
100% take the bugs.
See that picture?
I do.
That picture is from last summer.
Jordan's
And
screensaver.
That's
on
a
his phone.
sunny day,
Yeah.
and the cloud, like the sky was
So
like white, like it
It's
was
a
gray.
red sun in the middle of the day is what
Yeah.
Jordan just showed
So
me.
I took a picture of it because I thought that
crazy.
this is a really cool shot, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
unfortunately, the story behind the shot is that there were so many forest fires last year that we never really ever got the clear sky, right?
It always reminded me of that second sun in Star Wars on Tatooine. There's
Okay.
one sun that's like all red all the time because there's two suns on Tatooine, obviously.
Yes.
We don't need to get into that.
There you go.
But it always reminded me of that. Every time during the summer when we have the big smokes roll in, it's like, oh, we're in Star Wars now.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go back inside so we don't die.
Yeah. No doubt. Well, what did you get? What showed up in your feed? What has been tickling your mind here?
Tickling my tickling my brain hole.
Yeah.
Well, this year, it's interesting because I have some Saskatoon specific news as well.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, and this is just a headline because I won't get into all the details of it, but there's a solar farm project near Saskatoon, specifically the Montgomery neighborhood, that has apparently come back onto the city's agenda. So this would be hypothetically a solar plant, according to CBC, that would generate 3 megawatts per year, enough to power 475 homes.
Interesting.
A solar farm.
Yeah.
So one of the things about solar is that it's much less disruptive to habitats than like wind in terms of, well, so for anybody listening, watching, from a layperson's perspective, I'm not a what's it called? What's the word for like a scientist that studies like habitats and stuff? An ecologist?
There you go.
I'm not an ecologist, but solar is pretty simple to set up. It's just big black panels.
Yeah.
So there's no moving turbines and stuff. And
Yeah.
if you put it into a city neighborhood, it's already the city. You're not removing land from natural habitats of the critters around Saskatchewan. So,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty interesting. What
Well,
do you
that's-
think about more solar in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, I think it's good. It's natural. It creates a ton of energy for the area, right?
Mhm.
I prefer it much more than those turbines. Like you see them kind
Mhm.
of on the highway. Like if you drive from Saskatoon to Winnipeg,
Yeah.
somewhere around like the city of Moosomin or the town of Moosomin,
Yeah.
you'll see those turbines going, right? Like
Mhm.
out in the field.
Mhm.
And like I've heard those things can have a lot more negative kind of effects on people and
Yeah.
whatnot. But the energy from this sounds good, and I don't know. I think as much as we could tap into this, it's probably a good idea,
Yeah.
and,
Well,
and combine it with the other energy sources at the moment too.
that's
right.
right. So
So-
Manitoba's got hydro.
Yeah.
Like Manitoba sells its hydropower to people
Yeah.
outside of the province.
Absolutely.
They got crazy hydropower. Saskatchewan, what I think we have is we got wind and sun.
Mhm.
And we got a lot of both. So I mean, that's kind of a good opportunity. Have you seen on Highway 1 coming through from Manitoba to Saskatchewan, there's wind farms already set up
Yes.
along the highway.
Yeah, that's by Mooseman. Yeah.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. Yeah.
You see that? You see
Well,
them
that's
kind
what
of,
you were just talking
You
about.
see them kind of flickering out there, and
Yeah.
when I first saw those, like they look kind of freaky actually. If you look too close at them, because those things are huge, eh?
They're big. Yeah. It's very
So,
futuristic, kind of interesting vibe. I
It
just
is.
listened to an hour-long podcast this week about wind power.
Okay.
So I actually have a lot of interesting thoughts about wind power, but the point for today is solar. So it's I think it's really cool because it's one of those things I've heard people more and more in Saskatoon. People are cladding their roofs with solar arrays.
Yeah.
And I think that's like brilliant if you have the means to do that sort of thing. Like you're saving yourself power.
For sure.
I know that there's some people in the States who they're able to sell their power back to the township or the county or whatever. If they've stored more solar than they can use, they can sell it back.
That's actually
to
fascinating.
save on there. So they stay on the grid, right?
Yeah.
But then they would also be self-sustainable. So it's interesting that way, hey?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's very, very forward thinking, I think. And
Yeah.
it's good use of resource. And like you said, it's not necessarily taking up anything. It's there. And
That's my thoughts, at
it's
least.
there to pull energy from. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go Montgomery. Hopefully
There you go.
you guys get that going. I think that would be wonderful.
That's a great
Would
area.
love to see that
Montgomery.
more. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool little area.
Well, that's in our feeds for this week. And now I think if you're ready, if you're willing,
I'm
I
willing
think
to
it's
do it.
time for us to parlay.
Parley.
Shocked face
I
from Jordan.
did my parlay face. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So I think we have a great parlay
For the
topic.
listeners, that was the coolest face ever.
Yeah,
Just to
he looked
throw
like
it
a
out there.
real cool guy.
Yeah.
It was but if you're only listening, you missed out.
Yes.
That's all I can say is it was the
Yeah.
coolest face I've ever seen in my life.
Ab-
So parlay, we are going to discuss a topic. It's kind of we want to come to terms about it. So a topic that has two different sides, and we want to see where we land in our conversation. So let's parlay together about books. You like books?
I love books.
So the
I've
question.
been on a kick lately, actually.
Really?
So yeah.
Me too.
I go on reading kicks, I find, every spring until about the fall, which is unfortunate because winter, there's like nothing to do. Like I should be
hear
reading
ya.
more. You know what I
hear
mean?
ya. I'm the exact same way though.
Yeah.
You know, I think it has something to do with dopamine and like
Yeah.
the winter season because
I
I
think so.
watch TV in the winter like a hound. And
Yeah.
in the summer, I'm reading all summer.
Yeah.
Anyway, so parlay. The parlay we're going to talk about though. It's great that we're both interested in this right now because the parlay is books,
Okay.
eBooks versus physical books.
Okay.
Which is superior?
All right.
So we don't need to agree, but we got to parlay about this. We got to figure out what we're saying here, okay?
Sounds good.
Got to come to terms. So ebooks being, like EPUB or like on your Kindle, on
Kobos,
your
right?
Kobo. Yeah, you can even get ebooks on your phone and your tablet and your computer, whatever. And then physical, obviously being paper.
Yeah.
But we got a lot of noise happening in this room right now. Ash, are you picking this up? Producer Ashley's hearing this noise. Sorry, guys.
I'm
Our
hearing
building's a
something
little
from
bit
the roof, yeah.
noisier today, but please bear with us. Yeah. So ebooks versus physical.
Yeah.
Where do you stand?
I am 100% without a doubt physical copy of books.
Physical. You want
Physical.
the physical.
I want the book in my hands.
Why?
Yeah. Well, because I find I could write in it, I could make notes. I find that I read a study somewhere, and I can't document this, but I did read a study about how with a physical copy, you seem to retain things better from what you're reading than from reading it on a screen of some sorts, right? Because I have done the ebook thing. I bought a Kobo when it first came out, probably like I was probably in the first year or two, like when it came out, I got one. I used it
like
for a while.
1967.
No, probably what would it have been, like 2010? Probably like somewhere around then, right?
Sure. Yeah. I could
Somewhere in
see
there.
that.
So I remember getting it right away, and I used it for a while, but I just found that it just, I don't know, there was something about the reading experience. It changed it for me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I didn't remember the material quite as well as I did when I had a physical copy and when I was like jotting stuff down with my pen and writing notes. Now, don't get me wrong, on most of these e-readers you could take notes and stuff, but the copy I had back then, and that was a hassle to do that. Like
Yeah.
that took time. Like that took away 4 pages of reading every time you went to go write something or highlight something, right? So I like physical copy of books for sure. I think in all media for the most part I like physical. And if you were to look at like the shelving at in my office or at home, you'd probably see that. So
Yeah, because you're even like, we don't need to get into this.
we won't
but
get into this. I know where you're
you're
going.
into vinyl
I am.
over digital.
I am
and,
into vinyl records. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can appreciate that.
So what about you? Ebook or physical?
Okay. So I really enjoy analog experiences.
Yeah.
And especially there's a dear friend of ours in our church that told me something one time. I'll just shout her out. Dawn Friesen told me this one time.
Okay.
She said, because I was holding my tablet or something, and her daughter had an e-reader with her. And I had asked her, you know what, Dawn, I've been wondering if I should get an e-reader because I use my tablet sometimes, but it feels a little bit, like there's so much on here and stuff keeps on happening. And she said, you know what, I think we should all really consider having single-use devices, like devices that serve one purpose.
Interesting.
To help keep ourselves focused.
I like
and
it.
forgive me, Dawn, if you're listening or watching and I misquoted you, but the sentiment is that stuck with me. And it really made me think more. I was like, you know what? Like, so this right here, this tablet, I use it for everything. Like this is my, and I use it for computing on the go and everything, but it's everything at once. So I really do enjoy analog experiences. And when I do studying, writing, I use physical books. I use page markers. I write down in physical books. I only type things out if I'm trying to get it to somebody else or I'm trying to make sure it's really clean so I can read it properly. But honestly, there's a couple things that have switched me over to eBooks, and I have a Kobo now. And by the way, I looked it up. You were right. 2010 release. Nailed it.
Is that what it was?
You nailed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first
I knew
Kobo,
I got mine around 11 or 12 or something.
There you go. Yeah. And those first Kobos were pretty ratchet, man.
They were. So maybe that affected my experience, right?
Yeah,
and
maybe.
I'm going to throw this out here really quickly here too.
Yeah.
I find that a fiction book, because not everyone's reading just to study and take notes. And I went on that premise about my experience, but a fiction book, I could actually do fine on an ebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. It changes it for me a little
pleasure.
bit. Exactly. You're just reading, you're kind of trying to take in the story, right?
Okay.
But anything that I want to remember, go back to, maybe document some stuff from, I prefer the physical.
You know what? I've realized exactly where we're going to land at the end of this conversation together. So I see exactly what you're saying. But I think there's a few things that have made me appreciate ebooks. So I've got a Kobo. It's a Clara. So it's got backlight and it's got warm and cold light. So it's not just a cold light in your face at nighttime or whatever. You can shut it off. You can have it turn on when nighttime, like you set a night schedule if you want, whatever. Yeah. And thing number one, when I go on summer holidays, I've brought books with me all sorts of places and never opened them. And it frustrates me so much. I've got 3 different books because I'm like, well, what if I don't feel like reading this one? Or I'm halfway
always
through this
take
one.
3 in my suitcase, so I can concur with this. Yeah.
And then you take them there and they get beat up at the beach or whatever, and you don't even read them.
No, you maybe read one if you get to that on vacation.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So it takes up space. It's heavy. You're damaging your books. I prefer the analog experience. Reading in the sun with the page just like blasting sun back in your face is such a wholesome experience, just damaging your eyes because of how much sun is hitting that page. But I realized that I could take my e-reader, I pack it away in my bag, takes up no space. I've got every book. I can even borrow books from my local library, which I do. I have a library card in town here.
You use the Libby app?
Yeah, I use Libby and Overdrive. Yeah. So shout out Saskatoon libraries.
Yes.
They're amazing. I love them.
Yeah.
We could do a whole other section on another episode about how important and good libraries are to communities. But anyway, you can lend your books and take them with you. And you don't have to take the physical books from the library. You take them on your e-reader. The other thing is that when my wife and I go to sleep, sometimes we're just on different, like she'll fall asleep before I do. I fall asleep before she does, depending when we're working and stuff. But we're always going to bed together. Yeah. And I can't just keep the light on.
Yeah.
But with the e-reader, it's just a faint, warm glow behind the page. And it feels like you can just read at night. It doesn't light up the whole room. Nice and quiet. When you're done, just put it on the table, fall asleep. It's a dream.
Well, and I would agree. Those are 2 areas where I think I remember going to Banff around 2013-ish. And after I got my e-reader, And I wanted a book on that trip, and I didn't have a bookstore in the city there,
Mhm.
but I was able to get it on my e-reader. And
Mhm.
I read it. I enjoyed it. I think it's perfect for stuff like that.
Mhm.
I think the experience you talk about at night when you don't want to, when you can have a light on or something, I think that's good too.
Yep.
And so, yeah, don't get me wrong. I think there is places for the e-readers, and you're actually
Mhm.
making me think about looking them up later after this episode
Yeah.
and seeing what they look like nowadays.
Yeah.
But like, I definitely am kind of, some people joke with me in my last context, used to call me a bit of an old soul, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that I still buy physical magazines, I still buy physical
Mhm.
books, and I still buy physical media for the
Mhm.
most part,
Mhm.
right? I don't use CDs. I've gotten past that.
Yeah.
I use
Yeah.
digital experiences there, and with movies, I definitely don't buy DVDs anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I understand the upside to ebooks, but I think physical, especially if it's a book that was meaningful to me, I'll have to own the copy.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
I get that 100%.
And I'll mark the whole thing up, and I'll
Yeah.
still lend it to people, but I'll tell them, you're going to see how I think, because
Yeah,
you're going to
yeah.
see all this stuff written in
Yeah.
it, right?
So
So-
that's the area that I would come over to your side with, is that
Okay.
in terms of the pros of physical books over ebooks, if I'm using one as a resource,
Mhm.
it needs to be physical.
Yeah.
Even using stuff online, I have a hard time using online resources. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't translate the same, you know?
Yep.
So I would rather go to like a theological library in town here if I'm trying to write some sort of a message or something. I would rather go and get a book and use the physical copy.
Yeah.
So I get you on that. But when I read at home for pleasure,
Use an e-reader.
it's always fiction and it's always on my e-reader.
Yeah.
Although I've got the important books on my bookshelf, you know,
Yes.
the life-changing ones, The Hobbit, The
Yep.
Watership Down, you know, the series that
The
have like,
essentials.
changed my life. Yeah,
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings box set. It's there. But,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a pretty good place. We've kind of actually agreed to like the same things about this one.
I think so. Yeah.
That's a pretty civil parlay, is it not?
I think it is. I think either side here, you can kind of budge towards on this one.
I can live another day respecting you.
Okay. I'm appreciating that. So
Yeah, no, I feel like that's an interesting one. Let us know. We'll talk about this more about at the end, and how about you? But let us know. What do you prefer, ebooks, physical? Is there anything? Or if you've got thoughts about our feed, you know, with Saskatoon issues, mosquitoes, and solar, let us know what you think. I would love
Wanna
to
hear your
see
thoughts.
what everybody's into with books, especially. It's
absolutely.
interesting.
I agree.
But with that said, it's time for In the Neighborhood.
In the Neighbourhood.
We had a very interesting weekend. It was a good weekend.
Yeah.
But Pastor Louis brought a challenging message to us as a church, didn't he?
He
This
did.
weekend at church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He started a new series in the book of First Peter, and this past week we talked about persecution and different things that the church faced. I'm going to read a few verses of it.
Yeah.
It's found in First Peter chapter 1. In verse 3, it says, "All praise to God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. It is by his great mercy that we have been born again, because God raised Jesus Christ from the dead. Now we live with great expectation, and we have a priceless inheritance, an inheritance that's kept in heaven for you, pure and undefiled, beyond the reach of change and decay. And through your faith, God is protecting you by his power until you receive his salvation," right? Which is ready to be revealed on the last day for all to see. And so pretty soon, Peter is going to start writing to the group he's writing to, right? And he's going to start talking about some difficult things that they're experiencing. But he frames the whole thing within, man, look at what God's done for us. Look at the amazing things God's done for us, right? Like, look at this salvation you have. We have great expectation for this. He says here, it's beyond change. It's beyond decay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be revealed at the right time. And it's going to be a glorious thing. It's going to be an amazing thing.
Mhm.
And so Peter starts writing here, and he's not just getting into like the tough stuff that the church is experiencing at the time, because they were certainly going through very difficult things. And make sure to hit the Neighborhood Church podcast and listen to Pastor Louis' message on this, because I think he really brings that out in quite strong ways, what they were experiencing in this time, right? But he frames it with salvation. He frames it with you have hope. He frames it with that there's still something to expect, right? And I think that that's always good for the Christian to keep in their mind.
Yeah.
Always good for us to keep in our hearts that, you know, above all else, God's done amazing things for us. He's done things that are priceless, that you can't put any price on whatsoever, right? And there's an amazing hope for us. And framing it within that, I think, allows the rest of the conversation to unfold a little bit more through a lens of what Jesus has done, and not just what's happening in the world.
Yeah. And I think Louis did a great job this weekend of punctuating that by saying that the hardships we face in life, as is stated in the first chapter of Peter, it's called First Peter because it's the first
book
Peter wrote.
Yeah, you wrote 2 books.
So there's a first and a second Peter, and it's just volume 1 and 2. But what's highlighted is that our suffering, and specifically to the early church, meaning the Christians that existed in this first, very short chapter of time after Jesus was around, they faced intense persecution.
They did. Yeah.
Very intense. People getting martyred all the time for their faith, which means they're being killed on the premise of their faith, and they're standing to that. So the Gospels lead right into the epistles, where we hear about the Acts of the Apostles, tells us all about people that are dying for their faith. And the point that Peter makes in the first chapter of his first book is this stuff will show us what our faith is made of. So our faith will be tested through it. No, I don't believe that it's meaning to say that God is like, well, let me test how good of a Christian you are by having people try to murder you. It's not about God ordaining or orchestrating that, but that it is an opportunity for us to recognize that when these things come, if that sort of thing comes, then there's going to be an opportunity to look and to say, well, this is what my faith is actually made of. And I think Louis did a really good job pointing that out, making it interesting. And it really made me think, and I think we could spend some time discussing this, but how do Christians view suffering? How do we think our faith interacts with even just the idea of suffering? Because there's some heavy, heavy stuff talked about very quickly in First Peter. And when you look at the first century church, people were dying, being killed for their faith. And around the world, there's still people being martyred, being killed for their faith. And it makes me wonder, what's the Christian view of suffering? Yeah.
And living in a context, I think, where you're able to approach attending church and doing things more freely without laws being made against these things, with freedom of religion, freedom of speech kind of thing, right? I think it's tough sometimes to put yourself in a world where this stuff would not be as welcome, or would be even a law against, right? And I think living where this stuff just comes so freely to us, we have to be intentional about putting our heads in a spot where there are people around the world right now who are being persecuted for their faith, right?
Because of their faith explicitly.
Exactly.
Yes. Not even because of political things. Not but because of their faith.
Absolutely. And I think we have to be intentional about doing that, because over here it's really easy to preach a really easy kind of God just wants to make you happy gospel, or a prosperity gospel, if we can put it that way,
Call
right?
It the prosby gospel.
Yeah, there you go. The prosby gospel. There you go. But something like that, where it's just focusing just on the benefits of this whole relationship, right? That we forget that in life everyone experiences different things. We all experience times that are great, and we all experience times that are tougher to walk through.
Yeah.
And yet the same. I think this is why Peter begins this letter by blatantly expressing the hope that we have in Christ.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's where we need to anchor things.
Yeah. And I think it's a great point, because as we talk about suffering, you touched on it here for a second, the idea that it's not just that we should wonder if there will be suffering in life as Christians, but that we should expect it. And it is tough in our context in North America to really put this into perspective sometimes. But you can even isolate it from, or not isolate it, but you can pull it back a little bit to a broader view. So not just persecution for your faith, but from to a broader perspective of just the trials of life, the things in life that bring us suffering in general, loss, grief, abuse, neglect, trauma. All of these things produce suffering.
Yeah, walking through stressful times, stressful seasons, right?
And so that there is a clear delineation between being persecuted for your faith and then trials of life. I appreciate that there's two separate things here, but the reality is that when we ask the question, how do Christians view suffering? I think we have to recognize that the Gospels, so Jesus' ministry and teaching, and all the literature that follows, and everything that preceded it, so the Old Testament, the Torah, all of these things didn't tell us if you suffer. It says when you suffer. Like, the Christian outlook is really about the inevitability of suffering. It's not something we get to avoid. And I think it can be a tough thing for Christians sometimes, where we think that maybe there's a path, like we made a joke just now, like the prosperity gospel, the prosperity gospel, meaning like if you have enough faith, you walk in prosperity without any problems, and whatever you believe will be true for you. And, that sort of thing. Like, God wants you to have a problem-free life. Mm-hmm. The reason that is incompatible with Christian belief is because we're told time and time again that not only should we expect suffering and trials, but that we don't even get a pass out of it. So I've talked to a lot of young people that ask, like, where's God in my problem? Where's God in my heartache, in my loneliness, in my depression, so on and so forth? And it's very important for us to understand from when we're young Christians into our advanced years of faith that Jesus never promises that we'll be removed from those situations. He promises us to go through it with us. Yeah. He promises to be with us, to make a path through it for us. But it's not about taking us around the mountain. It's about cutting right through. Like, yeah. What do you think about that when I say that?
No,
what does that jog for you?
I think you hit on something good. And I think that's what Peter's doing here, and even in this portion, is he's setting it up with this is what God has done for you, and this is the God who's with you. This is the God who walks with you, who at the end of the day, it says here, it's going to be revealed to the world, right? In verse 6, like your salvation, right? And so I hear that. I remember when I was younger, I used to attend some youth rallies and stuff, which are always fun. They're always good times, but I remember
hype times.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you use that word hype, because I remember sometimes the message really being focused on, if you do this, your life will be this, this, and it was always focused on the positive side of things, right?
What you do to get.
Yeah. So when I got to college and my profs started like challenging me on these things, and some of them put literature in my hands that got me looking at different sides of the equation and different sides of the world and different things that are happening, it became a bit of a struggle for me, because I'd really been taught this in a hype rally, but then when I got to college and we actually started studying things from a worldview point of view, it led me to see that there's a lot of people who still to this day experience persecution for their faith, and in that we got the promise of Christ, and I think that's where you're going with that, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, and I think even from a context of just sort of the trials of life we might go through, like it makes me think of mental health, and it makes me think of my own mental health journey. And how when I started to recognize that I wasn't mentally healthy when I was a teenager and into college years, I really thought, like, my basis of faith was that if I believed enough, that I would be relieved of anything, that anything could be taken from me if I just had enough faith for it. And it leaves you in a very difficult position when your mental health, your struggles don't improve no matter how much you pray, how much you believe, how much you lean in. Because you're looking for everything to be just washed away. And you know what? Interesting, like some people are miraculously relieved of those things.
Absolutely.
But it's not the norm. It's miraculous. The norm is that Christ walks with us. And so the transition for me as a young person to understand that I wasn't waiting for a silver bullet or a magic wand or a get out of jail card. I was waiting for my Savior to walk with me in compassion and support while I dealt with what I dealt with. And when I finally got that and I transitioned to that thinking and slowly began to trust God to walk me through what I was going through, that's when progress started happening. And lots of external things happening too, right? Like my faith was balanced with getting the conversations I needed to have, getting, the right healthy lifestyle habits, but my faith informed all of that as I began to trust God to be with me through it. And so I think it just can be very disillusioning if we have people think that in my personal suffering, my mental health crisis, my family problems, my grief, my fear, my anxiety, we expect Jesus to relieve us of this rather than for him to give us the Holy Spirit to be with us through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can have a lot of disillusioned people waiting for God to answer and being like, well, why doesn't he answer me then?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a really important thing to talk about. And it's one of those things that just like we don't get a single answer to.
Absolutely.
Something we have to deal with case by case in our lives. And
definitely. And we're going to go area by area here because I know I've read First Peter a few times and I know where the book's going to go, right? So I think we're going to be in this path a little bit, talking about different areas and different scenarios where this plays out. But I appreciate you sharing your story, and I appreciate you sharing your just what you've kind of learned on your journey too. I think it's important for us to hear that and to recognize that could be an encouragement for other people today who find themselves in a tough spot, and just recognizing that God is with you still, right? He is walking with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
And we just appreciate the series that we're going through at the Neighbourhood Church. Would love it if you'd pop in and hear about it.
Absolutely.
And there's more to come. It's good. We're excited because we believe at the Neighbourhood Church that God is actually interested in our lives and wants to be involved. So,
amen.
It's going to be a good series.
I like it. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
So that's in the neighborhood for this week. Looking forward to hearing any thoughts you have about that. Would love to hear about it. Maybe there's something that you've gone through. You've got a story of how your faith informed that. We'd love to hear that.
Absolutely.
But it's time for How About You?
How about you?
We had some interesting feedback in one place.
Okay.
Specifically.
Yeah.
So over on Spotify in the poll, I'm going to shock you with something, Jordan, okay?
I have a
And I want you to don't read your show notes.
Okay.
I'm going to just don't look at that.
All right.
Okay. Close your eyes. We had a vote for PC versus Mac, which was last week's Parley, PC versus Mac.
Interesting.
We had a vote on the poll in Spotify.
Yeah.
We had 100% vote for one option. Which option did you already read the show notes?
I did.
Okay.
It was PC, wasn't it?
It was PC. 100% votes for PC.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to tell you how many people voted.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but
But
PC
it
won
was
today.
100%.
Yeah.
0% for Mac, 100% for PC.
There you go.
I didn't participate in that.
I was going to ask you.
I did.
If
I participated in
Did
the
you text
poll.
people? Can you shut up for PC out here over on Spotify for me? So, but that doesn't surprise me actually. I think the vote would. I think that whole thing, like when we talked about that segment, it's shifted, right? And I think I wonder if there still are like people who are like 100% like Mac everything or PC everything, right? Like
Interesting, eh?
I think you could probably find some balance in the whole argument. Like I remember people used to joke and call the Mac people like Mac evangelists, right? Because they would go around like trying to sell their product to everyone and promote their product at every second they could get, right? And I was probably part of that, to be honest with you, in the early stages, because I did start with Mac when it first started coming back. I remember having that white like plastic MacBook.
Oh man,
it was such a cool looking little thing.
They were cool.
So
They were
mine
super
melted.
cheap.
Yeah, I put mine near a candle once like this. There was a candle burning, and it burnt the whole top of my.
See, this is the thing. In old school days of portable PCs, we didn't know how to treat them, man. Some of these things just burnt out due to neglect.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you wouldn't put your computer in front of a candle.
Not a chance I wouldn't.
Right?
No, I've learned my lesson.
But we didn't know because portable PCs were just new, right?
We did.
So,
There
or
we
portable MacBooks. But we really want to this week. How about you? We want to have you like, follow, share, comment. We want your interaction. Please let us know what you're thinking out there. The more interaction you give.
Yeah. Any mosquito stories?
That's right.
Do you like mosquitoes? Do you hate them? Do mosquitoes serve a purpose? Come on. Someone argue that one for me, okay?
Yeah, actually, no, genuinely, if somebody can convince us, because I'm like, if we could
redeem this
is
whole
gonna
thing
get
somehow,
dark.
right?
This is going to get dark. But if we could like engineer a virus that kills every mosquito in the world,
Oh no.
like would we say no?
Yeah.
Should we say no? My first thought immediately is it's like they're living beings.
Convince us otherwise.
But convince us otherwise. Let's just play a game here.
Yeah.
But we really want you, seriously, if you're here at the end of the podcast, we really want you to comment and to interact with us, because we will hear you, and we would love to have your thoughts and interaction. Tell us about books.
why physical's better, all that stuff,
Hey,
right? All
hey,
that stuff.
Hey,
So
come on now, take it easy. Talk to us about suffering even, share something from your story, and we would love to interact with you. If you ever have something that you don't want to post as a comment or something, you're welcome to DM us or just let us know what's going on. Yeah, so I think it's been a good episode, and I think, honestly, you've never been more wrong in your life about books. But,
there you go.
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
Well, you enjoy your time with your e-reader tonight, and
Thank you.
I'll enjoy writing in a book.
Okay, right on.
Catch
you guys next week.
Yeah, have a good one.
Unedited is a ministry expression of the Neighbourhood Church. Hosted by Ethan Andrews and Jordan McClellan. Produced by Ashley Drayton. Find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.